Will Kayatin, Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative. It is a great day because I am joined by my friend and colleague, Miss Dottie Nolan. Dottie,
Nolan.
Tell the teachers and students who you work for.
Hello, I'm Dottie Nolan, and I work for Eastern Kentucky Concentrated Employment Program, otherwise known as EKSEP.
Yes. Well, this is somewhat of a part two of an educational session you may have enjoyed featuring Miss Dottie Nolan regarding soft skills. So we decided we were going to have a conversation and tease out some of those topics a little bit more. But before we get started, I asked Miss Nolan if she would just take a couple minutes to talk a little bit about her story, her journey, because it is very compelling, and she is not far away from here in London, Kentucky, but she works in the entire service region. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about who she is, where she's from, and what she's been doing at EKSEP for the last number of years. Miss Nolan.
Thank you. Let's see. I come from a family of 13 children.
Oh my goodness.
Neither of my parents finished high school. They didn't have a college education. My dad was a World War II veteran, and my mom was a stay-home housewife, but very talented woman, and very talented parents, to say the least. I grew up in Harlan County.
Didn't know that.
Yes.
Because I know you live in London.
I do. I live in Laurel County
Laurel
now.
County, okay.
Grew up in Harlan County.
Yay, go Harlan County.
Woo. I went to school at Lincoln Memorial University. That's where I finished my bachelor's degree.
Yeah, affectionately referred to as LMU.
Yes.
It's in Tennessee.
Yes.
So you didn't go to a Kentucky school?
No, I didn't.
Went to LMU?
Yes, I went across the border.
Okay.
And once I finished my bachelor's degree with Lincoln Memorial, I completed my master's with Union College in Barberville.
Okay, very
Yeah.
nice. And?
After that, of course, my master's and my bachelor's is in education, so I'm a true educator at heart. And so I did a lot of substituting until I was hired full-time with Head Start. So I started my career with Head Start.
Okay, early childhood.
Early childhood, yes,
Very good.
exactly. With KCEOC out of Knox County.
So you worked in early childhood
Yes.
for how many years?
Oh, about four to 6 years.
Wow, that's quite a long time. Teaching and administration or both?
Administration.
Okay.
Yes. So I worked with our teachers, working with our curriculum, providing them trainings, observing, just anything that we could do to create the atmosphere of learning environment.
That's such important work.
Yes. And so after that, I taught school for about 4 years. I taught kindergarten and first grade.
Yay, kindergarten and first grade.
Yeah, so
what school?
Some of my silly stories are from early childhood and all my kindergarten and preschool and first grade years. I taught at Hunter Hills in Laurel County.
Hunter Hills in Laurel
Yeah.
County, okay.
So after that, I was hired with the Center for Rural Development, which was also a partnership with EKSEP as a soft skills trainer. So I worked at the Center for Rural Development for a couple of years, and I've been with EKSEP ever since as a trainer coordinator.
Very nice. How many years now? 6, 8 years?
This is going on 6 years.
Okay. So I've been at KVAC about just a little bit longer than you've been at EKSEP. And of course, we've had the privilege of doing partnership work together.
Yeah.
Miss Nolan has been a mainstay at our transition conferences, and she is quickly becoming a stalwart with these transition video vignettes that we're building out in a stacked suite format for your enjoyment and learning. So.
Yeah.
Dottie mentioned soft skills. Soft skills is something that falls under the larger blanket of workplace readiness training.
Yes.
And so we're just going to take a few minutes to talk about the importance of workplace readiness training. I think, based on my experiences, and you probably feel the same way, students who are shy by personality, maybe not very expressive or don't like to talk in front of other people. Most folks struggle with talking in front of other people. But we want to talk just for a couple of minutes about the difference between work communication skills, solid workplace communication skills, and interpersonal skills, because the two are very much related, but there are some little differences. So Dottie, talk to our students. And teachers, thanks again for sending these videos out to your students to enjoy, particularly during this spring when opportunities are limited. Obviously, we can't be in your school.
Right.
So talk a little bit about students cultivating solid workplace communication skills, because that's a little bit different from interpersonal skills, because interpersonal skills typically include someone who is perhaps extroverted and just it's real easy for them to talk. They have the gift of gab, as it were. But just because you're shy and maybe not very expressive by personality, that does not mean that you cannot cultivate solid workplace readiness communication skills.
Right. You know what I have to continue to tell myself is these are all skills. And that means if I am not strong in this area, I can definitely learn. I can research. I can look up different personality assessments. I can just think of how everybody is different communicators at the workplace. So, if I think, oh, I'm not good at communicating with others, I'm better with communicating at home or friends, it's a skill that I can improve upon. So that makes me really happy. When I think about communicating, first of all, we all come from diverse backgrounds. We all have different conversations at home, different conversations at friends, and obviously conversations at the workplace are going to be different. But not so much different, but it's going to be more specific based on your job specifications, what you were hired to do. Rather than at home, it's a more comfortable conversation, or with friends, it's more comfortable. What I keep in mind is when I'm at the workplace, I need to remember to communicate in a more technological, just more precise, more decisive conversations. Whereas if I'm at home, I can elaborate more. I can beat around the bush, so to speak. And just be more comfortable. At the workplace, when we think of customers coming in and assisting our coworkers, our conversations really need to be short, sweet, to the point.
More formal.
More formal. Obviously, with your personality, we can't, it's not fair to come to work to be a robot. But customers, when they walk through the door, their time is limited. What they need is just information from us. So, yes, communicating in a more formal style. Now, if I'm on break with my coworkers, then I can communicate in a more casual style. That's when you can just kind of, diffuse, you can just relax, and then get ready for your shift. But customers especially, part of them having confidence in you is the conversations you have with them.
That's a very powerful point.
Yeah. So our customers want to know that we know the products, we know how to fix what they've come in our place of businesses to solve. So once again, almost thinking analytically, thinking step by step. Listening is a huge part of being a good communicator. We can talk until the cows come home, but that doesn't mean I'm a good communicator. It's also listening, analyzing what you've asked me, thinking step by step how we can work through this, and choosing the correct vocabulary.
That's great. So, if we happen to go to another state, particularly in the Northeast or perhaps on the West Coast, when we are at a restaurant and perhaps we're having some communication with someone who's giving us change back, we're probably not going to hear, "Thank you, sweetie. Thank you, honey." That's,
I don't think so.
no. So, because that's informal.
Sure.
But in the context of our region, it is formal.
Yes.
So that's an interesting little example, I think, to tease out because
Sure.
If you're not from this area and you stop at a restaurant or a gas station and have some exchange with another person, you're probably going to hear honey and sweetie.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter if your spouse is sitting in the car, and that could be problematic for someone if you're not familiar
Definitely.
with that vernacular.
Yes. And that's another interesting way to look at communicating. I think that we're just routine people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to be open-minded, especially if Kentucky is the only place you've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
But just once again, the internet is so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Communicating with other people is so helpful because it gives you a different perspective of the world around us. And I'm proud to be from Kentucky. I do have a Kentucky slang. I do know all of those Kentucky cliches like deader than 4 o'clock. But if I go outside of the state of Kentucky, not everyone, I need to understand, I'm not in my comfort zone. And it's okay that we're not going to completely understand each other, but I do have to be open-minded of the fact that, and be willing to learn.
That's great advice. That's great advice for you students. Okay, we're going to move on to our second subtopic, and it's about team. So again, we're talking about workplace readiness training.
Mm-hmm.
Team is very, very important because there are a lot of people who don't play well with other people.
No.
And that's a problem when it comes to cultivating those all-important workplace readiness training skill sets. So, Dottie, talk to us a little bit about the importance of team.
Well, you're exactly right. Not everybody is a big team player. And so I've really thought about what makes teams work, or the opposite, why do teams not work? Sometimes, for me, to understand how things work, I really need to look at the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about why teams don't work, maybe it's because of the conversation we just had. Some individuals are poor communicators. It's hard for them to say, here are some things, here's our goal. This is the amount of time we have to achieve it, and then divvying up some responsibilities. So communication is such a huge part in the workplace. So sometimes individuals are poor communicators, and therefore it can break teams down. Maybe another reason that individuals aren't the best team players is people get territorial.
Mm-hmm.
People get
No.
Believe it or not, people get territorial. I think as individuals, we work really hard with cultivating our space, cultivating our knowledge, and working on our skills. And I think that it's something that we own.
Sure.
And sometimes if we feel intimidated, sometimes we're not willing to share.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, when we think about the breakdown of teams, sometimes it is territorial. Once again, we are expected to work together. When we're hired, our employers are going to expect us to work independently and collaboratively.
Absolutely.
So if this is an expectation my employer has, I want to retain my position, I want to keep my job, I want to continue to grow, then maybe I need to let go of a little bit of control to see if this person has strengths that maybe I can learn from. So skills that I can learn from. And it does take time. And once again, sometimes we're more goal achievement driven. We're more task driven rather than cultivating that sense of teamwork at our place of employment.
That's terrific feedback, Dottie. All right, we're moving right along. We're going to talk a little bit about collaboration. Even though that is obviously related to team, we're going to go a little bit further with that subtopic. Yeah. So, Dottie, talk to us about the importance of collaboration.
Well, once again, I think we've been taught to collaborate since we've been itty bitty. Once again, we are individuals, so being an individual is important. But we don't exist alone, so it's important to learn those skills of social and emotional skills. Once again, just finding out that you have something in common with someone else. So working collaboratively, once again, at the work site, it's to complete the task at hand. It's to work for employer and for customer. But I do think when we have a culture of collaboration, and I think it really truly should start from supervisor down, and then our managers out. So, because truly this can't be built from entry level up. The culture has to come down, has to come from CEO, employer, executive director, supervisor, and then managers. So this cultivation of working collaboratively can be cultivated from just being honest and transparent. Letting your staff know, here are some goals, here are some things we have in mind. We're all important. Not one individual is more important than the other. And for example, look at the times we're living in now. Not one employee is more important than the other.
That's correct.
So working collaboratively, once again, is a skill. It takes a little bit of give and take.
Compromise.
It takes a compromise.
That's not easy for some people to do.
No, and once again, I think it's about just a trust. Maybe some individuals have let their trust down with employees, and they've gotten disappointed. So they've learned, if I want to continue to meet these goals, complete these tasks, I need to make sure I do this myself.
Yeah, if it's going to be done right, I'm going to have to do it myself.
Exactly.
We hear that all the time.
Yes.
That's really not a good long-term solution. There may be instances where a leader at work has to make some executive decisions by virtue of the accountability and responsibility that they possess, but it's not a long-term, successful workplace readiness training strategy. We've got to be able to collaborate, and we have to have all of our voices heard in order for us to accomplish our goals and objectives. And that's tough. That's
tough because if we don't, what we create are silos. We create our own little departments, and then we have no communication, which leads to everyone not feeling like they're a part of the team.
Yep. Very well said. All right. Moving on to our fourth subtopic, problem solving. We're going to spend probably, as we move through life and work, more time every day solving problems than enjoying the success of life and work.
Sure.
Like, it's all about problem solving, and the more adept we become at problem solving, the happier we will become, and certainly the more successful we will also be in life and work. So let's talk a little bit about problem solving as being one of those all-important components for workplace readiness training, because we're going to have to solve problems every single day. And we're going to have some really bad days, but we're also going to have some really great days. And that's just life, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And when I think of problem solving, when that's something that we hear from employers every day. We hope to hire staff that are critical thinkers. And all the activities, once again, that we have in kindergarten, all the way up through postgrad, they're created to, they don't necessarily say, here's a problem-solving skill, but they're all problem-solving skills. For example, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? But I do think that we're so afraid of failure that we don't put ourselves in a position to be the person that doesn't do something right. So I do think, as far as being a problem solver, being a critical thinker is maybe sometimes we doubt ourselves. We doubt our making abilities. But once again, I think it gives us empowerment to say, okay, I can do this. Let's start thinking strategically. How can I make a step 1, 2, 3, and 4? Here's my end goal. How can one of the ways that I think about problem solving is, here's my end goal. How can I work backwards? And that's where I'm going to find my solutions. That's where I'm going to find my steps. Mm-hmm. This is what I want to achieve. Let's work backwards. Because sometimes I think when we think of working forward, it creates some stress mentally. So once again, it's rewiring our brain, hacking our mindset instead of being stressed
or anxious about the fact that we have a problem in front of us.
Exactly.
Solve the problem.
Yes, solve it. And there's more than one way to solve a problem.
Absolutely.
And I do think employers want to see that they can hand us a task, and it doesn't necessarily have to be done in one specific way. Now, some employers, yes, if you're in machining, there are certain steps. But there's lots of other ways to solve problems. It just takes you thinking outside the box.
That's true.
And I love the book StrengthsFinder 2.0.
StrengthsFinder 2.0.
Yes.
Okay.
StrengthsFinder 2.0. Because in any type of personality assessment, it tells you, here are some strengths that I have. Here are some things that motivate me. But definitely problem solving. Everyone has the ability to do that. It's just putting yourself out there, putting yourself in a situation, having confidence in yourself, and saying, you know what, this is my decision, and here is some evidence of how I can back that up.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Dottie. All right, we're going to move into our last subtopic, and it may seem like a bit of a stretch, but stay with us, students. It's design thinking. Never more important than in the 21st century, where everything is technology driven. And in order for us to cultivate workplace readiness training skill sets, it's going to be imperative for us to become very competent in our design thinking abilities, because fundamentally, we're talking about thinking and working creatively. So let's talk just for a couple minutes about design thinking. And please share with the students in our audience some of your suggestions as it relates to design thinking.
Okay. So, as I shared earlier, I'm the youngest of 13 children. So, I had a lot of people thinking for me because it was easier than having Dottie do tons of self-discovery. It was easier because they had 12 before me. And my siblings, all of them, we just all pitched in together. So I can say for myself that design thinking, critical thinking was difficult for me as I got older. So maybe some suggestions I have to make, or that I can make, is that once again, have confidence in yourself. If things don't work out correctly the first time, try another way. Put yourself give yourself some new opportunities to harness these skills, to cultivate these skills. Number one, I think that's why puzzles are so important. Puzzles are important because they teach us to think outside the box. They teach us to have a strategy. They teach us to look at something and see it as a whole picture in pieces.
Our world is going to require us to be very progressive and innovative. As such, we have got to give attention to that all-important skill set of design thinking. I never imagined that this spring I would be converting the transition conferences completely online, virtually, for teachers to send out to their students. And that's what we've done over the past couple weeks. I had planned a blended delivery of these opportunities moving forward into the upcoming year, but I really had to work very hard and exercise design thinking
Sure.
and collaborate and communicate and problem solve with the team here at KVAC to make this happen. So it's just a microcosm of what you students are going to be experiencing as we move forward. You're going to have to be able to design think, which means thinking out of the box,
Sure.
thinking creatively.
Sure.
With that, we've run a little bit long, so we don't want to run much longer. I think this is probably a good place for us to put a bow ribbon on our educational session. And students, I hope you enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed sharing this information with you. And thank you so much. And we miss you, and we look forward to working with you in person. And we know that's going to happen very soon. Meanwhile, cannot thank Dottie Nolan enough for her leadership and all the expertise and talent and energy that she brings to these video vignettes. So with that, we will holler at you later. Bye-bye.